Far in the Tibetan Plateau, in a high-altitude land where few people dwell, is Qinghai province. This area, larger than all of France, only has a small population of only about 5 million people in the whole province. Many of these are nomadic yak herders who live in the high mountains between 10,000 to 14,000 feet. The Tibetan Plateau is called the Third Pole because after the North and South Pole, this is the third largest supply of drinking water in the world. Flowing out of the Himalayas, this supplies almost 50% of the world's population in China, India, and Southeast Asia, their drinking water. Qinghai province, although virtually unheard of by everyone outside of China, is the source of 3 of China's greatest rivers: the Yellow River, the Mekong River, and the Yangtze River. Hey, this is Ben Cubbage from the Hutong, and today we are going to be learning a little bit about Tibetan culture in Western China. You know, when we live in big cities, a lot of times it's easy to not even realize that Western China has a whole different element of culture. And in Western China, there's over 5 million Tibetan Buddhist people. And I happen to live in one of the places in Western China called Qinghai province that has a lot of these people. In Western China, there are Tibetan people who herd yaks, who herd sheep, who live in the mountains at 4,000, 5,000 meters high into the mountains. And we're going to be exploring some of those people and some of those cultures here today in Western China. Qinghai province is the source of the Yellow River. The Yellow River bubbles up out of the ground in these remote, often frozen lakes at 4,500 meters in elevation, and then it winds its way down through China. The Yellow River's upper headwaters include the upland swamps and pastures of the Tibetan Plateau in Qinghai province, and these then flow north through red rock gorges up until it leaves the valleys for the Gobi Desert in Inner Mongolia. In Qinghai province, the Yellow River flows over the roof of the world at over 3 or 4 kilometers in average elevation above sea level. In this area, its waters are mostly alpine lakes, marshes, and grassy meadows, and its water is relatively clear. The Yellow River, or Huanghe in Mandarin Chinese, or Machu in Tibetan, is the second longest river in China, after the Yangtze, and the 5th longest river in the world, with a length of 5,464 kilometers, or 3,395 miles. The Yellow River originates in the high plateau and flows through 9 provinces, from west to east, eventually pouring out into the Bohai Sea. It is the mother river of China. Its basin was the center of Chinese politics, economy, and culture for over 2,000 years. The Yellow River is not just an iconic river of China, but also the symbol of the Chinese spirit, bearing burdens as it bears its sedimentation, adaptation and flexibility as its course changes and winds through China, and overall the perseverance of the Chinese people to survive and endure over 4,000 years of civilization. So we're looking out here of the first bridge of the Yellow River. We just passed a town called Madua at 4,250 meters, so right around 14,000 feet. So we're in the high Tibetan grasslands, we're driving to Yushu, and this is the first bridge across the Yellow River. If you follow this river upstream for about 3 hours, you'd reach these 2 beautiful lakes, Jiarong and Qirong Lake, at about 15,000 feet, and that is the actual source of the Yellow River. So, of course, the Yellow River is considered the cradle of Chinese civilization. It's very important for China, and here we are at the first bridge that crosses it. One interesting fact about this bridge is that Tibetans, when they have someone in their family die, they hang these prayer flags to offer prayers for them as they enter the next life. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Tibetan nomad life. Tibetan nomads are some of the last living nomadic cultures in the world, or semi-nomadic cultures, I should say, because sometimes in the winter they actually live in a house, but in the summer they live in tents. What does that mean? They move around roughly about every 30 days, so they let their yaks graze in an area, they eat all the grass down, and then once all the grass is basically finished for the yaks, they move to the next valley across the mountains, and then they graze there. And then they keep doing that. And so basically Tibetan nomads move with the rhythms of the grass. Okay, so why is this so important? Well, the yak is super important to the Tibetan nomad because it's basically their entire life. My Tibetan friend Sanji has this wonderful quote that says, "If we have the yak, we have enough." And what that means is the yak is everything to them, just like the buffalo would have been to the Native Americans of North America. The yak is their transportation traditionally. That's how they get across the mountains. The yak is the source of their shelter. They actually make their Tibetan tents out of black yak fur. The yak is a source of leather for their clothing and for their boots. The yak is a food staple, so that provides yak meat, it provides yogurt, it provides cheese, it provides many of the things in the Tibetan diet, especially in a place such as this, where it's so high altitude, there's no vegetables growing. It's really hard to find food out here because it's so cold and so dry and so high. So because of that, the yak is very, very important to the Tibetan lifestyle. And it's also the source of fuel, which is very interesting because as you can see up here, the altitude is so high, no trees can grow. It's too cold for them. So because of that, there's no wood out here for a fire. So how do people heat their homes? How do people cook for themselves? They actually use yak poop, which means they collect it every single day. They dry it when the sun comes out in the mountains as kind of a dried cake patty. And then they take this dried poop and they actually put it inside of their cast iron stoves and they burn it. And that's how they boil their water, that's how they cook their food, and that's how they heat their homes. And you can imagine it's such a high altitude where it probably gets negative 20, negative 25 degrees Celsius. That heat is essential to survival for all Tibetan people. So the yak is an amazing animal. Awesome, this is Ben Cubbage from the Hutong. Thanks for joining us on our epic journey through Western China. We'd love to see you out here. Check us out through the Hutong for more in travel and adventure in Western China.